have a nerd night field day. But Rishi's back here tonight to talk to you about puppetry.
I'm a grown man trying to hack it as a boxer in Cambodia, and I still care a lot about puppets. It's difficult to define a puppet and broadly distinguish it from, say, a helmet, a mask, or a doll. But broadly speaking, puppets can be defined by they play for a human manipulator, they play for an audience, and they have endowed with a life of their own. Puppets might have originated from Egypt to honor the god of the afterlife, Osiris. To symbolize the dying and rising of a human body, these puppets had falling and rising penises. Since then, the penis has become a quintessential part of African puppets, as seen as this Congolese puppet right here, whose only movable parts of his body are his arms and his very long penis. In Europe, after the fall of Rome, puppetry suffered, because the church deemed puppets idolatrous and satanic. Puppeteers were considered the most vile class of individuals, but in 1310, the church changed its stance on its issue, which witnessed the birth of puppetry, which has spread across the continent and developed into a tradition of its own. Puppetry has existed in China since 1000 BC, but flourished during the Song dynasty, playing for all classes of people in emperors' courts, roadsides, and entertainment sisters. Like religion, philosophy, and everything else in China, it then spread into Japan and Korea, which each country developing its own puppetry traditions of their own. In India, puppetry may have predated live actor shows themselves. In the Rajasthani tradition, puppets played and supplemented juggling performances, where in the Kathakali performances of Kerala, puppets were designed to reenact the two major Hindu epics. From Kerala, these puppets spread to Java, where the puppeteer is rightly revered as a paragon of society, a critic, a scholar, and artist. In Native America, the Hopi tribe used this puppet to dance to pray for an auspicious harvest, and other tribes use this raven puppet to tell the story of the raven god. The raven originally lived in birdland, flew away with the stone as mouse, got bored, dropped the stone, and that stone became the earth on which we live. Puppets can be grouped into 6 classifications, the first of which are full-body puppets, like this Malinese puppet known as Yoruba. At 10 foot tall, she's a giant, but still able to bow on one knee and dance for her female audience. Hand puppeteers are the most popular of puppets because they are the easiest to design and most easy to manipulate. This is one of my personal heroes, Jim Henson, who taught the world to laugh through the use of hand puppetry and created the Muppets. Hand puppeteers are unique in that they control not only the puppet's life, but also the puppet's brain by sticking their hand directly into the puppet's head. Burmese puppets, like these, are marionettes, which contain 20 strings controlling every aspect of their body, from their elbows, shoulders, knees, and thighs, but unfortunately not their penis. Due to the 20 strings these puppets have, they're capable of producing dizzying acrobatics from cartwheels, flips, dances, and everything in between. These are rod puppets, controlled from underground by long metal rods. My favorite type of rod puppetry are the water puppets of Hanoi. These puppets play on the water because they were initially designed to appease the spirits, and are played on water because they were designed to play on the harvested rice paddies right after flooding. Shadow puppets are put together by producing a 2D image between a flame and a white translucent page. These produce puppets that are black, colorful, or can shimmer as they do in Bali. King Jayavarman II was born in Java, a hotbed of shadow puppetry, and brought shadow puppets to Cambodia, where they can still be seen today. Finally, the pinnacle of puppetry, like the pinnacle of green tea and the pinnacle of everything else, originates in Japan. In the Bunraku tradition, there's a shamisen musician, a chanter, and 3 puppeteers masked and clad in black. These puppeteers start studying as children, and after 30 years, they're only allowed to manipulate the puppet's head, torso, and right arm. These puppets are immensely lifelike, and the puppeteer is deft, clearly being able to produce the exact rhythm of which a weeping woman would dab her brow, or the exact wobbleness in which a drunken god would sip his 3rd or 4th sip of sake, differentiated between his 1st and 2nd. Puppets are used not only for entertainment, but also for political reasons, as they were used in Cambodia in the 1920s, as shadow puppets of top-hatted, big-nosed Westerners were used to depict problems that still persist in our home today: tax extortion, forced labor, and the coldness and insularity of French expats. In Czechoslovakia, puppets went underground to take part and denounce the Nazi regime. The most famous of these puppets were Schwebel, an obstinate father, and Hurvinek, his idealistic young son, who depicted the horrors and tragedies that were experiencing of the Nazis. The Nazis deemed these puppets to be Jews and locked up their performer, Joseph Stupa, in a concentration camp on his behalf. Now, I'd like to talk about what separates the puppeteer from every other performance artist. Think back to some of the great performance artists of the last century. The fiery passion of Marlon Brando as he graced the stage of Stanley Kowalski on Broadway, the bombastic Prince on his Purple Rain tour, or the sexy Carano who aroused every scrawny hipster boy in every dingy club in which she's played. In all of these instances, the artist and ego are inextricably linked, whereas the puppeteer plays not for himself, but for his art, because the puppeteer realizes that the permanence of art itself is what ultimately redeems us all. And I'd finally like to conclude by why puppetry is especially important to me. The simple elegance of puppets so readily captures the redolent and innocent airs of childhood. Whenever I see a puppet show, whether it's the hand puppets of Paul Play, the shadow puppets of Bali, the water puppets of Hanoi, or the Bunraku puppets of Japan, I'm brought back to moments in our life before we were motivated by such things as avarice, passion, productivity, or an indebtitude to service, and instead simply by the boundless curiosity of this wonderful world. Before we were mired down and thought about and stressed out by things like life decisions, relationships, and the tension and unnerving fear of career, we existed to play, explore, and discover. These involuntary memories are beneficial because they help rescue me momentarily from the habits that usually constrain my mind. And I'm thankful for puppets for this. And for me, it's puppetry. I at least hope, if it's not puppetry for you, I hope to God you at least have something else of your own. My name is Rishi Reddy, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rishi. That was delivered with such poignancy and calm. It made the 20 seconds seem very relaxed.
Questions? Yes? I've actually never seen them. There are performances. I think they're close to Russian Market, and they're supposed to be pretty good. Bopana?
It's near Bopana. I've seen them before. It's a cute little outdoor puppet area. So I'm not sure if they're open during rainy season, but it's really nice. I would recommend it. It's like 5 or 6 blocks south of Russian Market.
Near BTK, yeah, we'll post on the Nerd
Yeah.
Facebook page.
And one over here?
Are you a fan of Team America World League?
I've seen Team America. I don't necessarily if I'd call myself a fan. But yeah, it's funny. I like Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Ah, over there.
Do I like Being Elmo? The movie Elmo? I haven't seen it. He strongly recommended it. I'm a really big fan of Sesame Street, so I think I would enjoy it.
Back there.
No, when I was having career struggles a couple of years ago, I looked into graduate studies in puppetry, but unfortunately they're very expensive and the job market's not particularly good. So I abandoned it in favor of tea. And I'm a bit too old to just train in the Bunraku tradition.
Chris.
What do you think of the sort of sociological, like what do puppeteers end up thinking about their profession? Do they sort of become obsessed with their characters they play? I'm just fascinated by a career spent.
Chris is asking what it's like to be a career puppeteer.
So using Being John Malkovich as my reference, it completely consumes you. So much so that you want to enter another man's mind and move the marionette into the forefront of our world. But I can't imagine anything you seriously devote yourself to, like Bunraku, couldn't completely consume everything about you. Because you spend 30 years so fixed on a single entity, it becomes so much so like a part of you. I watched these guys play a show in New York. It's probably like the best thing I saw in my 3 years there. And they were interviewed in Japanese and through a translator, and literally their cognition of anything outside of puppetry was so limited because this is all they did. And they could speak to this, but literally nothing else in the world. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing.
Did puppetry develop independently, or did it come from one special place?
So from like the little I know, I think scholars are generally divided on the issue. Some would say that these Egyptian puppets were the first of all, and some would say traditions developed independently. But at least there's not one linear focus that's been developed and that you can trace. If it all started in Egypt, it went like this way.
What was the first puppet performance that you really got into?
The first puppet performance I got to was in this Morocco show that I saw, because I'd never really thought about puppets as anything spectacular. And then I saw this, and after that I've made a point to see puppets in every place I've gone in which puppet culture seems to exist. And I've seen some pretty horrible stuff off Broadway, a terrible play of Frankenstein, and then I've seen some incredible things.
How old are you for the first one?
I was 24.
Oh.
Yeah, very cool.
Other questions?
Yes. What do you think of ventriloquists and their puppets?
Oh, so ventriloquists are pretty cool because they're very much hand puppeteers. I don't know a ton about them, but they're pretty awesome. Yeah.
So I just heard like 2 days ago that Jim Henson died and his heirs sold out to Disney. And I haven't seen Sesame Street since I was like 6 or 7 years old, but I was wondering if you have been following and has it changed since the changeover of power and use of puppets for ideology and that kind of thing?
Well, actually, I didn't know that, but Jim Henson wasn't a creator of Sesame Street, so I'm actually wondering how his heirs would be able to like make that kind of decision. So, you sure it's not the Muppets at Sesame Street?
I don't know. I've heard that it was he died and that his heirs sold the rights to all the Muppets to Disney.
Oh, the Muppets. Oh, okay, so that could be the case. And then, I don't know, I haven't seen the new Muppets film.
But so now Disney owns Sesame Street as well, is what I
Oh,
heard.
because Sesame Street falls under the guise of Muppets, perhaps. Yeah, but there's a fart joke in the new Muppets movie that drew a lot of ire from like pretty hardcore Muppets fans, because it's considered beneath like the level of humor a Muppet would drop to. It's totally the joke is quite funny. I should watch the film. I can't imagine it's as good as the Muppets Take Manhattan or the Great Muppet Caper though. Yes.
Have you heard about Ralph not talking since Henson's death?
No, I didn't know that.
Ralph
I like
hasn't
that.
talked since Henson's death.
What?
Oh, you have to repeat the question.
Oh, have I heard about Rolf not talking since Jim Henson's death? And no, I hadn't heard about that. Rolf wasn't a particularly garrulous character to start from.
Henson's favorite character.
How did it change how you thought about Muppets when you were a kid versus when you saw the first performance when you were in your 20s?
I guess that's a good question, because when you're, I guess, a kid, you don't think about puppetry as an art. You think about something that naturally appeals to you and makes you happy, because that's what everything is designed for when you're a child. But I guess as you grow as an adult, you start to think about how complex things are and how the littlest things that seem so simple as a child are actually incredibly difficult to consume in one's life. So I really started to think about more of the puppeteer and less about the puppet as I've grown older.
Which is interesting, given your final comment about the puppeteer disappearing.
Yeah, he's disappeared from the stage, but very much entered my mind.
He's truly infiltrated you. All right. Any last thoughts, questions? You can find Rishi online through our YouTube, I guess. So look for his YouTube in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's
Watch
right.
us
Rishi
over
Reddy, most watched Nerd Night YouTube video to date.
500 of those views are my own.
Boom.
No. YouTube has an algorithm that prevents you from doing that. I've tried it before.
Yeah, I tried it too.
Also today we put up the Super Smash Brothers fanfic oil painting. People were like, "Oh yeah, that's like Wario. Oh, that's like Link. That's like blah blah blah." And then people were like, "Yeah, and this is like a fanfic." And then Rishi came in and was like, "Yeah, this is clearly the Super Smash Brothers that they released for the Nintendo GameCube." Because the guy in the shadows there didn't get released as a fighter until that version came out. So, uber nerd, Rishi Reddy, round of applause, please.
So next time, watch this one.
Oh yeah.
Bring